So Insomniac just added back a key piece of the puzzle that might help us explain more of the future DLC. There are many secrets in fact added with the new patch, as well as glitches that let you play with almost any character you want. So we're gonna talk about that and more in this video, and let's dive right in. Now let's get started with some extra interactions and secrets, and including one that can only spawn after finishing the main campaign, but it only spawns for a limited time, and it actually lets Spidey give an interview to a newscaster team. So you will find it right here at the same place as the memorial back in the financial district. There's also a dialogue here for Jefferson Morales, both for Peter as well as for Miles, but it's about the same as the one from his grave up north, very close to Aunt May's grave too. But yeah, if you linger around after finishing the main story in this very spot, you might get a chance to see these two NPCs spawning, which is essentially a news team, and you can go ahead and interact with it and even take part in an interview.
Spider-Man, New Yorkers want to know, is a hot dog a sandwich?
No, but it might be a salad. Think about it.
You heard it here first from the man himself. Thanks, Spidey.
Now, I'm not gonna lie, Peter probably could have chosen his words a little bit better, but yeah, the thing about this is that it never spawns after this point, and it's also extremely difficult to make it appear in the first case. I had to constantly restart after finishing the main story and come back here, change the time of day. As you can see, I also changed it to nighttime, and I also tried triggering this with Miles, but for some reason it does not. So if you do manage to trigger this with Miles, I would definitely love to know what his dialogue is during these moments. But speaking of more things that might have gone over your head, if you check any descriptions, especially for side or main missions, you will notice that the description completely changes depending the perspective that you watch them from, be it from Peter or from Miles' perspective. So you will notice that quite a lot of them have completely different summaries depending if you choose one or the other. So for example, in the case of the Flame, one of the missions, if you pick Miles, it's going to say Peter ran into Yuri, but she's calling herself Wraith now. And if you go with Peter, it's going to be New York has a new cult and Yuri is back. And if you go in the main missions, this is also going to reflect the state of mind that each character had during these moments. So for example, in the mission New Threads, Miles looks at him and Peter as a team. So he says, we lost Connors because of the hunters. However, you can see Peter's more individualistic sort of state of mind in this case. I lost Connors thanks to the damn hunters. And also I'm going after him. He may have big teeth, but so do I. And later on in I'm the Hero, I think Pete's losing himself. What are we going to do? And from his perspective, everyone seems to think I have a problem. Can they see I'm better than I've ever been? I'm going to fix this, all of it. Even later on, you can see how much Miles actually looks up to Peter during the anything can be broken. So it's good to have old Pete back. I keep thinking about how he said Miles got him out. Maybe I'm more than Spider-Man after all. And from Peter's perspective, Miles just freed me up from the symbiote. I have to get it back to the lab and find a way to apologize for all of the hurt I caused. But speaking of other characters, you can literally play with any of them as long as they have playable missions of their own by just breaking out of bounds during those respective missions. So for example, if you want to play as MJ, you can do so easily during the wake up mission. So this is essentially the one in which Peter gets back home. And yeah, there's going to be a bunch of hunters coming by. You're going to eventually reach this second sort of alleyway after the first one. And there's some car passing by, a bunch of enemies that you have to take down. And once you reach this second enemy, yeah, there's going to be a garage right next to it. So from this point on, you will want to enter inside of garage and then get to the other side in the backyard of this house. And essentially pay attention to this water feature slash fountain, because you can use this, run against it, and then sort of clip and glitch over these bushes until you can pass on to the other side. So this is going to be a bit trickier to pull off. You might need to restart a bunch of checkpoints, but essentially if you can just get over this fence on the other side, you don't even have to walk as much as I did. You're going to be free from the mission. And unlike everything, like for example in the case of the out of bounds Venom variant, this completely spawns both NPCs and the entire traffic all around New York. So if you wanted to like get a different kind of appreciation as a pedestrian of how New York actually looks and how big it actually feels, I think that this just does a very good job at it. I've seen some people suggesting a sort of guide tour would work really well for this. I wholeheartedly agree. I think that this would work really well. And I mean, I played around with MJ. She doesn't really do much, but it's nice to just travel around. I also went ahead and yes, she also has her own photo mode and emotes as well as poses that you can choose from. Furthermore, you can also use the bike as you're still in the same neighborhood. You can go ahead, grab it, and just have around like fun with it. There's also a ton of rain going on, so you cannot escape it for some reason. And by the way, she can also dive into water. She's not gonna have any swimming animations, but she definitely seems to, yeah, have a lot of speed when it comes to traversing the Hudson River. Given how powerful her gun is, I kind of wish it was possible for crime activities to also spawn. But yeah, maybe somebody can find a glitch for that. If there's gonna be one, I'm totally going to drop a video about it. But let's keep on going. Like I said, there's also a new update, and one thing it did is it brought back one of the Easter eggs. So for example, the Nelson and Murdoch sign back at the lawyer office is now completely back in the new update 1.04. Now, I'm not sure if this was a bug and it was unintended, but it seems that Insomniac brought it back once more. The thing about this is that, the eviction notice is also completely gone, so there's definitely some movement for that DLC, the Daredevil DLC that we also talked about a couple of days back. So yeah, definitely let me know down below, what do you make of this? It definitely seems that with the eviction notice gone, we might get to see them coming back to the office and maybe continue from that point on. There are of course many changes and improvements that this update brought, including for stability, so you should see it just behaving a lot better. Also a lot of bugs being fixed, like for example becoming stuck during the finals of Marco's memories. Another one where bosses could become stuck in geometry, players could become stuck during the galvanized tutorial, and many more, like for example when using shortcuts, enabling certain abilities. This could make you become stuck in puzzles during the new threads mission. Also, the charge jump being completely bugged out when using it to a shortcut was being fixed. The upgraded classic suit having duplicated eyes have also been fixed. And finally, some of the models not loading properly after long play sessions has further been addressed. However, I'm still seeing the spider cube still popping up even after the second update. So at this point, Insomniac should just release it as its own costume. Now, speaking of other things in the new update, fortunately enough, the glitches are still there. For example, if you want to change the weather or time of day, those Mysterium, bugs still work. You can go ahead and do them. If you want to see a longer video how to pull this off, I have the one from yesterday, so totally check that one out. On top of this, there's also a bunch of animations that I really enjoyed and didn't notice that they were even possible. Like, for example, did you know that you can still pull off your web lines between buildings and kind of create that really cool moment in the early stages when Miles stays on his webs and then uses the web slingshot to go back in the Sandman fight? You can totally pull that off, and it's absolutely amazing every single time. I definitely love it, and I'm using it all the time. Another one is that you can actually create kind of like your own web layer all around town by just leaving off these webs. As you may or may not know, you can connect them to one another and kind of behave like a real spider and make your own web. Maybe you will catch something in it. Now, what I don't like about it is that it has a limited number of web lines, so only like a handful of them. I really wanted to create a authentic web sort of corner for me in which I could just stay there, maybe a layer. So who knows, by the time the game comes out, maybe on the PC, mods will let us infinitely cast these and truly create some proper webs. But there are many more web swing animations that have been added in the new game, but you can constantly trigger these if you know what you're doing. Like for example, this really cool one for Pete. So to do so, you just have to constantly do backflips, and whenever you follow up with a web zip from a backflip, it's always going to enter this really cool upside down kind of animation, and one of his legs is extended. It's definitely one of my favorites, and I always like pulling this off, especially since Peter doesn't have the same flavor as Miles does with his own animations. And speaking of Miles, you can actually pull off an infinite spinning animation called the curly fry. It's one of my favorites and it's kind of like a two-way combo. So first you're going to want to enter a windmill, which is done by holding down square and then flicking your left controller stick to the right side. This is going to cause Miles to extend those webs and also spin clockwise. But if you then follow up with a flick to the left side of the left controller stick, is going to instead continue the spin and jump into a curly fry, which is this one you can see right now. So if you just pull this off constantly, you can essentially do a windmill into a curly fry constantly. I'm pretty sure this was also possible in Miles Morales. Again, let me know down below if there's any other cool two-way transitions that you know of for both Pete and Miles. This is pretty much it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.